Hi guys, welcome back to the pit. What you're seeing here is the completed first third of my new bolt action table. But before we get into the video, if you like my work, please give me a like and subscribe. It's a massive help. Thank you. For those of you who haven't seen my previous videos in this series, I'm building a bolt action table based on a town called WWII, which is a real life town in Normandy that saw action during World War II. I decided to split this table into 3 sections, and in my previous videos I showed you how I built the first section of the board, which was made up of a school, some roads, a field/orchard bordered by a bocage, and a farmyard and farmhouse. In this video, I'm going to show you how I added the finishing touches before I called this board done. To help me with this, I bought a few new boxes of Rubicon model scenery, which I'm very eager to use, so let's get into it. One thing I need to do before finalizing this section of my table is furnish the interior of the school building. When building the farmhouse, I built a pretty cozy looking interior for it, just to add a bit of flavour during gameplay. But due to time restrictions, I left the school building bare. So I started doing some research to figure out what the interior of a French classroom would have looked like during this period.
What?
La grenouille mange les pamplemousses.
Where am
En français.
Just to be clear, I didn't use The Simpsons as a source in my research. This is just a mildly amusing, mildly relevant clip, so I'd like to apologise to any French viewers. But in fairness, Australia received the same treatment by The Simpsons, possibly worse.
Mr. Prime Minister!
Aye, mate. What's a good word?
So I found some photos of French classrooms from the mid-20th century, and got to work assembling the furniture and other classroom paraphernalia. I started by assembling a desk and chairs that I got from a Rubicon models kit, and then used a desk and a bench that I got from a Mantic Games kit to use as the teacher's desk and a classroom bench. I painted these up. I included this row of books as well as a couple of other interest pieces. And then I went about weathering and detailing everything. Like the classrooms from that era, I wanted to have a blackboard and various educational posters and framed pictures on the walls, so I found some old-fashioned posters and portraits online and printed them out at roughly the right scale. Once printed out, I first very precisely cut out this portrait of a late 19th century president and a blackboard. And once they were cut out, I created miniature frames for them. I cut out a rectangle of card just slightly larger than the pictures, maybe a mil larger in length and width. I then cut out the center of the rectangles, leaving a very narrow border, which will act as the frame. For the blackboard's frame, I glue a matchstick to its bottom in order to create a chalk shelf. Once the glue was dry, I cut the matchstick to length. I then painted the frames. And then glue them onto the pictures. And now that they are done, I glue them, again using a glue stick, onto the classroom walls. Next I glued down the educational posters. I then placed down the furniture, leaving them loose so that they could be removed during gameplay. And that was it. Another finishing touch I wanted to include was signs. Wartime Europe loved signs. There just seemed to be signs everywhere. It looked like a bloody dog's breakfast, if I'm being honest. Anyway, I decided to recreate the actual street signs found in Bougie today. I achieved this by typing the actual street name into an arrow-shaped box in Microsoft Word. Because I wanted to fit these signs to the Rubicon Kit sign panels, I had to be very specific about their size. So this is rough as guts, but what I do is adjust the size of the paper on my monitor to be about the size of an actual A4 piece of paper. I then compare the sign panel to the picture and make them roughly match. I then also create slightly larger and smaller versions and see which one fits best. Once printed, I cut these out roughly and then glue them onto the sign panel, ensuring the arrow outline matches the side of the panel. I then use a hobby knife to cut off the excess paper. Once that was complete, I dabbed the signs with some brown paint on a rough piece of sponge to create a bit of natural looking wear. Then, using a sharp file, I placed the signpost on the corner in front of the farmhouse. Next, I worked on creating another telegraph pole, which would run in line with the one standing in front of the school. I assembled this from a Rubicon kit. Which I then painted and weathered. And I place it down the road from the first pole, facing in the exact same direction. I also added a sign. Next I had to create some more natural looking vegetation in a few areas on the board, like here alongside the road in Bocage, on Rue de la Odon. I first placed down a random scatter of PVA glue blobs, and then placed tufts on top of them, of various shapes and sizes. And with the tufts done, I repeat the process, but this time glue down leaf litter. Once done, I think this section of the board has a much more natural looking appearance. I repeat this process in areas of the board that look a little plain or unnatural. And then finally, I touch up the table's borders. During the construction of this section of the table, paint, pigment and glue has dribbled down the side of the board, and it looks a bit messy. So I decided to give it a touch up and give it a neat looking finish. So I mask up the ends of the road sections and apply another coat of the same protective brown paint around the entire border. And that was it. I called this entire section done. This was really exciting because it now feels like I'm making some progress on this board, and the end is within reach. I'll see you next time when I begin work on the next section. Thank you.